Welcome to the Business Clicks podcast, the podcast that interviews business owners to discuss their struggles, strategies, and successes with using the power of the internet to grow their business. We discuss the transition from brick and mortar growth strategies to digital alternatives. We provide new and exciting tactics each business can use to be successful in this new digital world. I'm your host, Adam Barbro, and let's get stuck in. Welcome to episode 4 of the Business Clicks podcast. Joining us today is Alexei from Your Easy Web Solutions. Alexei, before we get started, I wanted to ask, what is the one thing you believe will make a successful business in the years to come?
Well, that's a great question. I think any business playing the long game should certainly focus on its reputation. I think that's the number one thing that a lot of people don't look into soon enough. And oftentimes you meet businesses that have been in business for, 10, 15 years, and you can't find anything about them online, which is a big concern. So, yeah, that's probably the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, brilliant. I think that's a great, we could almost end the podcast there as the takeaway. I mean, brand is something that you hear so much about these days, yet so few companies, even large companies, do well.
Well, the brand itself is a pretty big thing. But the brand's got to be connected to a reputation, and oftentimes it's that reputation that's actually missing. I mean, you may hear about something, but if you go online and start Googling for certain companies, you may not find exactly what you want to see. And it's about making sure that people understand specifically what you do, why people want to work with you, and what your points of difference are, as opposed to just putting out a plain message and hoping that that message will potentially sell for you over the years to come.
Yeah, brilliant. I wanted to ask, so Your Easy Web Solutions, could you give us a bit of a background about what is it, how did you start it, why did you start it, and how long you've been around?
Well, good question, and probably a great example where you need to think about a brand a little more than, well, in our case, the whole company started off as a web development firm, which is why it's called Your Easy Web Solutions. We wanted to take all the complexity out of building websites and potentially solving all the problems online. So we didn't know exactly how the company was going to develop what we were doing strategically. We basically just worked with all the things that were coming our way. And now we're a digital marketing agency specializing at, generating results. So you can sort of think of us as a results agency. And the whole angle is we want to make sure that people that are working with us aren't just getting clicks or aren't just getting impressions. They're actually getting calls, sales, or inquiries coming through. That's the result that we actually define. So in terms of our company, we've gone through a lot of different iterations. I started off as a freelancer initially, basically just building websites for people that wanted a website. Worked on a lot of membership sites, worked on a lot of ebook websites. Small business websites were most interesting to me because I could see there was a lot more to it than just a simple site. There was a whole story and a whole sales process following from it. And doing that for about 3-4 years, I've decided to sort of step more into the traffic driving conversion side of things, which led to us becoming a Google Premier Partner in the year 2012. Now, what that basically means is that we deliver results for our clients, and Google recognizes that. So you have to spend a certain budget and get a certain amount of return on that budget in order for Google to say, yeah, these guys are doing something good. So, yeah, we've been Google Premier Partner now for nearly 9 years, and that's a big thing in the digital world. And I guess right now what we're doing is we're trying to focus on working with the right clients and getting a little bit more involved in their sales process as well, because marketing without sales, can really be quite an expensive exercise, but that's, I guess, another story.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting that you talk about how you initially started out as a web development company and sort of transitioned into other aspects of it. Obviously not stopping that web development side, but adding the other areas in terms of, obviously it's important to then get the traffic to the websites that you've done so much to make sure they help these businesses starting to convert leads and stuff like that. I see this quite common with sort of similar business in our industries and other industries where people start off in some sort of, I guess, more of a niche field and then see, hey, we could have a bigger impact and serve and help more people here if we're able to offer them this part, which then feeds directly into what we're currently doing. Is that right?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, well, look, I guess you only know what you know, and you can sort of just solve problems from your perspective, and sometimes you just don't realize exactly what it takes in order to get the right outcome, because you're having a very limited conversation, especially when it comes to developing websites, not designing, but developing. you have got so many obstacles, and I guess you're just so focused on that. And oftentimes, I find that a lot of development and even design companies completely miss the whole point on conversion and outcome. They are too much led by the actual client dictating them exactly what they want, And the clients themselves, oftentimes, they don't know exactly what works. They know what they want, but they don't know whether it's going to work or not.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a big problem in the sense that even as marketers, I think marketers learn very quickly that in order to be successful, you go in there with a plan, but you test and then you see results and you adapt and you scale based on those results and the data that you're getting, rather than going in there, I guess, this is what we want to do, this is how we're going to achieve it. And I think maybe clients that haven't got that experience probably don't necessarily always understand that, and then that ends up, making them less successful in how they're using these things, right?
Yeah, well, look, the scalability is a big topic altogether. A lot of businesses can't scale. Like, they don't have either the resources or the infrastructure in order to be able to do that. And from a digital marketing perspective, like, once you sort of strike that chord, you definitely want to capitalize on it. And it's important to work with the right sort of clients who have the right goals in order to be able to help them out. Otherwise, you're going to end up with bottlenecks like, sales process, and opportunities are missed for all sorts of silly reasons, like people aren't able to pick up the phone on time, or they don't have a voicemail or something like that. And it's really quite disappointing when people are spending thousands of dollars to generate those leads and have those sort of holes within the sales process. And even with the actual sales process, they may be too focused on selling on price. And that's a big no-no. But, for us, we just got to make sure that whatever we're doing converts into an outcome. And this way, it's a win-win scenario. Otherwise, if we were just to focus on, hey, here are the clicks, here are the conversions, see you later, I don't think that sort of conversation would go very far. So for us, it's all about maintaining that relationship and make sure clients are getting the result.
I love what you're saying. And this is why I have so much respect for you and your Easy Web Solutions, for the simple fact that you do something which I like to refer to, or you don't do so, sorry, I should say something that I like to refer to, which there are definitely a lot of marketing agencies out there that do, which I like to call pseudo-marketing, which is where they go out and they just do something and then they leave the client and expect, oh, we got your leads. That's all, you can get from us. I think as marketers, you almost have the responsibility, and I think that's something that basically you're saying in the sense that, hey, we're going to help you with this and sort of help maybe fill in those gaps and offer some advice there to help maybe nurture you and to make sure that those leads aren't just, leads left on the table, but they can actually convert into business, which I think these marketing agencies that don't do that and sort of don't have any, feel like they haven't any incentive to sort of do that, they're sort of missing out on the opportunity of growing their business as well, because then people go, well, great, I got leads, but they didn't turn into anything, even though it's the business's maybe lack of knowledge or understanding in how to do that results in it. It then hurts the marketing agency's own business because they're, falsely maybe getting put on some, with the idea that, they've provided leads that maybe weren't good enough. And sometimes they don't, but yeah, that's definitely something that goes missing, I think, with some agencies.
Yeah, well, look, everyone does their business different, and I guess our industry is full of cowboys. People just want to sort of take their money. And you got to understand, obviously, both sides of the story. I mean, if someone's just saying, hey, we want to generate, 100 leads at $50 and this is our cost and stuff, they may not realize that the lead quality, far more important than the quantity of those leads. We've dealt with a lot of companies where there was a contract going on for 6 months where there was a volume of leads being delivered, but that wasn't really converting in anything. And you can really end up in, a lot of trouble by doing things like that. So you really have to make sure you diversify and understand exactly what the lead quality is and whether it's scalable or not. I know a lot of companies basically sell on, cost per lead and, delivering on certain aspects. But if that lead's being shared with 10 other companies, or if that lead specifically, lacks, let's say, time commitment, it's not something that's going to generate an outcome in a soon enough time. So there's just a lot of different variables that need to be considered when it comes to lead generation. For us, we want to focus on, I guess, an outcome and be realistic about the projection on that. And also, we don't do contracts. We like to work on, flexible terms, and it gives us the opportunity to potentially, walk away from some clients as well. Because look, as much as I like to work with businesses and help people, you just can't help certain businesses because there could either be a personality clash or people not doing things in the way that you would potentially support. So that's, I guess, where we stand.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to get into the crux of it and basically talk about obviously you're going to have a bit more, I guess, experience and knowledge here, but I want to really talk about, and this is what we do at Business Clicks, is I want to talk more about successful marketing strategies, maybe ones that you've used in the past, and definitely more so ones of how you've maybe transitioned those strategies online and how you've done that successfully. Obviously, being a Google partner, you're going to have a bit more of a, I guess, increase in knowledge compared to the average business owner. But yeah, I guess from your business or businesses you work with, are there any marketing strategies that you've really seen that have helped businesses, I guess, make that transition online?
Well, I guess, look, it all depends on the type of business. I'll give you a couple of examples, and let me share, I guess, our strategy. And look, this is something we worked on for many, many years, and even though it may sound simple, I think it's pretty complicated. But let me try to sort of explain. I've learned about a concept of trying to connect with people who have the same customer base but are not your competitors. So, for example, let's say for businesses like you and I, we are not in competition with, like, let's say, accounting firms or law firms, but potentially those companies could be working with a lot of our ideal clients. Now, if you understand the power of alliance and able to sort of educate those people, they will want to work with you themselves. So what I found the best way to potentially get them over the line is to run workshops. So before COVID, we used to run 5 or 6 workshops every year, and I guess it's all about credibility and creating urgency around why people should specifically spend the time with you. Because look, everyone's busy. They're not just going to come and do an event by Easy Solutions or anyone else unless they know them or unless there's some sort of credibility. So if you do work through a partner, it gives you more of a chance to get those people to attend. Even better if you have got even a bigger partner. So with our events, we actually got guys from Google to come and present, and also they also provided a little bit of an infrastructure for the whole thing, where they came in, had the banners up, had the room set up. They basically created registration forms from Google, and all we needed to do was basically just to promote the whole thing, where the Easy Solutions and Google were talking on a particular subject. And involving our partners and all the parties that we knew allowed us to get rooms of 20 or 30 people. And then from there, we would basically go and present on, I guess, what we do, how we do it, provide real case studies, try to engage with people, do things like panel discussions. And that was the way for us to sort of qualify into businesses on the leverage, through a leverage approach, if you like. We didn't specifically push for sales, but we went pretty specific in terms of the problems and how businesses are addressing them. And look, to be fair, some businesses fairly savvy came to the workshops, they learned something, they were able to sort of take that away and implement it. Good on them. Some businesses were either not at that stage and they wanted some help, or potentially it was just way too much for them and then they wanted someone credible. And put it this way, people want to work with someone who they know, like, and trust, right? So when they come to a workshop, they've got a lot more trust. They've got a lot more know, like, and trust for Google. They already know what this company is all about. You coming there through the partners and stuff like that, let's say your accountant sending out an email blast saying, hey, your Easy Solutions and Google are presenting, that is a really good way to sort of bond everything together. So in a nutshell, that's been our strategy. We tried that through webinars last year during the COVID as well, and that's worked okay. But face-to-face definitely works quite well. And that's been the number one strategy for us over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, that's great. That's really interesting. And I've actually been to one of them, of course. So I've seen you in action there, up there with the Google presenters presenting the data. One thing I have noticed when you did that, which was something that I haven't, I guess, spoken to you about, but I wanted to mention, is you do a really good job of marketing yourself and presenting market data versus product data, which I think is something that I see a lot of businesses do. I'd probably say incorrectly, in the sense that product data is would be you sitting up there and saying, oh, Google ads are great. And people are like, okay, Google ads are great. But instead you get up there and you also show the bigger effect as from marketing data and how that impacts these businesses and can make differences and show how that actually positively impact them. And that is always much more powerful. And that's something that I would like people to take away from hearing Alexei talk about that strategy, is the ability to use market data versus product data can have a big impact on the, I guess, trustability that people then walk away from the information that you present them.
Mm. Well, we found that the guys from Google were always focused more on the actual bells and whistles, more the features, if you like. And the businesses traditionally have a problem interpreting those bells and whistles into results. So the structure that we sort of chose for our presentations was, hey, here's, let's say, a search ad or a display ad, and this is how we can potentially use that to capitalize that into, the marketing funnel, whether it's going to be an engagement, a conversion, or some sort of a re-engagement type of model. So, I mean, we try to keep it simple, and we sort of aim for a lot of questions and realistic sort of conversation with the clients, as opposed to just feeding them that difficult technical jargon. And when you're speaking with business owners, they don't have a lot of time and they just want an outcome. So we found that it worked really, really well.
Yeah, brilliant. I was wondering if you could give us some examples now of maybe some of those clients that you did attract through those seminars, and maybe some of the troubles they were having before they sort of came to use you with, marketing their business online, and what was their transition like to once they'd sort of hopped on board and maybe they were using Google ads or YouTube ads or whatever strategy that you found could work for them. Could you give us some examples of them?
Sure. Well, look, I guess every business is different, and I guess the business owner has got its own they've got their own mind made up about what the best way to go about things. So a lot of people traditionally would come to you and say, hey, we want, SEO, or we want Google ads or a new website. And really, you've got to challenge that, because if the outcome that they're going for is not aligned specifically with what they're choosing, it's very important to educate them on the best case scenario. Now, we've had quite a few dentists come to the seminars, and one in particular was a business from Crestmead called Crestmead Dental. They came in, they had a reasonable budget for a small dental practice, and the biggest issue with them was they just didn't know what they were doing. So one thing that we showed them straight away was that we could half they spent and get them same or better results. And the issue was they basically were using Google Ads Express or AdWords Express, previously known, which was generating the campaigns for you. Now, the issue is Google does a pretty good job using its machine learning. However, if you don't set it up, or if you don't give it refined information, it's just going to go off the rails and will try to find you anyone who's looking for a dentist. Now, there are different types of dentists, and every business is so very different in terms of what they can, what they want, and what they should do as well. Some businesses are focusing on, difficult type of situations where there's potentially more money involved. Other businesses just want to create a bit of a lead flow and repetition. Now, depends on the business, and I would normally say to everyone that you may look at two, let's say, dentists in the same suburb, completely different businesses. From a perspective, look exactly the same. They could probably do that initial checkup and clean and fix a sore tooth, but then when it comes to what they actually want to do and what they focus on, completely different. So it's very important to understand that. Now, once you start working with somebody, it's about refining that lead quality, which is often outside of what the marketing companies can do. Because once you generate the lead, you can see, hey, Joe Bloggs inquired about a toothache, or let's say someone called and spoke to them for 60 seconds, wanting to get, a checkup and clean or something like that. And that's it. You can see that much. Now, it's very important to speak with the clients and potentially understand how that conversation went. Now, we found that with, some clients, the sales conversation wasn't going very well. So what we do offer our clients is call recording. Now, there's a whole legal part to it, so you may have to make sure that there's a recording in front of the whole thing. So, like this call is being recorded for quality purposes and so on. And obviously, you have to give people an option whether they, want that recorded or not. And from there, you basically use that to refine the actual call quality from the perspective of the salesperson taking the calls. Now, there's a lot of interesting learnings there, how people do it, and potentially what can be improved. We find that, that sales process for businesses that are selling high-ticket items, could be changed quite drastically. We could double the number of conversions from the whole thing just by making sure that the person picks up the phone and says things differently, or potentially change the overall process as well. But look, that's another topic altogether.
Yeah, brilliant. I definitely think you need to many times separate both the processes businesses have with handling leads as well as converting them into sales, because they are definitely two separate topics, often controlled by two separate groups.
Yeah.
I guess when you're talking about groups like that, what do you find difficult about converting them maybe to using some of the online products that you help use, such as Google Ads or any other similar products. Do you find that there's any sort of, I guess, in your conversations with these businesses, any sort of difficulties that pop up saying, "Oh, we've done that in the past," or what are the troubles that people usually have with the online marketing side of things?
Normally, people who come to us, they've got a bit of a negative experience. Either they've done something themselves and it didn't work, or it cost them too much and they didn't get the result they were hoping for, or simply they're doing something and they don't know how good that is. Now, they may feel it's good enough, and sometimes it's more about control as well. If someone's doing Google Ads in-house, for example, or SEO or whatever, and they get a few wins, they think, no, it's going great, that's it, let's just leave it at that, we don't want to lose that. So the fear of loss is always greater than the fear of gain, and we find that is often the issue. Now, there's many other things as well, but I find that, in a nutshell, a lot of people just have got their mind focused on other things way too much. So, for example, an average dentist, would be studying for, let's say 4 to 7 years to get their degree. Then from there, obviously, they would have to go and work for somebody else to get the experience. And then if they're lucky, they get, let's say, an investor or something like that, or potentially put some money together and start a practice. And practices aren't cheap. So by the time that whole thing happens, marketing isn't really the top priority for them, because from their angle, they think that, well, look, I'm good at what I do. That's my number one concern. I need to make sure that people get quality oral care. And then from there, potentially, it's a matter of being in the right location and following all the right processes. Now, those businesses really struggle to get up to good capacity, and oftentimes you'll find that dentists would work somewhere else a couple of days a week just to sort of keep up with the cash flow. And it's interesting, but they do the same thing, hoping that it's going to get them different results. They keep advertising the same way, which is typically an A-frame on the road, or potentially some flyers in the mail around the neighborhood, or they may do some sort of a silly thing like Yellow Pages. And look, back in the days, that thing would work really well, but hey, 2021 on board doesn't work so well. In fact, these guys are trying to do Google Ads in the simplest form possible, where they take most of the money. So, yeah, it's a tough one. And look, there's no judging there at all. It's more about understanding what the actual business owner knows and where they want to get. And I think the right clients for us, or the best clients for us rather, were the ones who were more focused on the outcome and wanted a bit of a peace of mind. So we actually started doing guarantees as of the beginning of the year, where if we don't generate enough revenue, we don't charge them our fee. So it's as simple as that. I'm confident in my processes. We filter out the clients as they come on board, and then from there, it's got to be a win-win outcome. Otherwise, there's no point being involved in the whole thing. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, brilliant. But I don't think it's a bad thing then, those business owners that are wanting to focus on their business. I think in many ways they should be focusing on their business and allowing, maybe some specialists, if they're not bringing them on board themselves, then using a company like yours to come on and help them with certain aspects of their business to create those leads and come up with those lead generation, maybe ideas or campaigns or whatever it is, to allow them to stay and focus on their business and give their clients that result. I think it's when you become too split over many different aspects, many, as you'd say, different departments of your job, that you're too much of a operational and more of a, you've basically got yourself a job rather than running a business. I think there is still that thing where people feel like they should be doing it themselves, or they need to be doing these aspects themselves. And what I believe, and what I sort of try and help people with, is the idea that, well, you need to educate yourself on that and then allow the specialist to come in and do it well. I think the education gives you the ability to know what are, okay, smart or bad decisions, or what are good or bad marketing agencies, but then leave it up to the people so you can then focus on serving and helping the customers that you've designed a business to do. Yeah.
Well, look, the website is the focal point of your marketing. And a lot of the time when people come to us and they say, hey, I've got a mate who's doing my website, or a family friend or something like that, that's all good and well, but you can't have that as a focal point of your marketing unless those people are real expert, not in just websites, but also conversion optimization, copywriting, and a few other things as well. Overall, you have to really take your website quite serious, because all your other marketing may fail just because the website isn't doing what it's supposed to do. And focusing on things like, I want my website to look this way, is certainly, alarms should be going off, because it's not about the looks, it's about the performance, the outcome. And overall, I find that the good business owners are the ones who typically get an expert to do someone, and they understand the value of doing that. And the problem then becomes trying to understand who the expert is. And look, we are by no means an expert in every single field. And when it comes to, I guess, designing a proper website, creating a brand and stuff like that, we work with partners. For us, it's about having those alliances with businesses like yours, where you really, own your space. And if we're going to send you somebody, you can answer all their questions specifically in relation to what you specialize in. I think that's the key. I think it's really important to specialize in one thing and then get the right outcome out of that as well.
Yeah, brilliant. I think I would have to agree with you, Ben, and I'd also have to say exactly what you said there, which is it's never just one thing. It's never just being able to say, hey, I created this awesome promo video. I'm going to have so much work coming in. It's going to be off, I won't be able to handle it. It's like, no, that's not how this works. This is a system. This is a bunch of processes put together. And if there's leak, I created something called the value chain framework, which is basically sort of the idea of helping businesses understand that it's all these things in the chain. And if you have a weak link in the chain, you're going to have areas where those leads or those sales are going to stop happening because that weak link is then, causing the spillage. You have to have each link, each website, each marketing process, each copy, all the content correct, all the messaging. And once all that's done, that's when you start getting that real flow of clients coming through, above your expectations. But it needs to be a strong link all the way along to make sure that happens on a consistent and regular basis.
Yeah, 100%. And look, a lot of people may not understand the full idea behind marketing. There's so many different components, and I guess with linking those, you obviously use a framework, and what you're saying sounds great, and make sure people are able to measure all those components, or at least track how they're performing, then everything is sweet. If they are unaware of what's happening and who's doing what, that's when the whole thing becomes a bit of a headache. I guess, I like to look at it from a perspective that if a business is specializing in, let's say, I don't know, brain surgery, for example, that's exactly what they should be focused on. They should really get other people involved to do things well. If you find that a brain surgeon has got a bit of free time and wants to design a website like a hobby, fair enough, but don't expect that website to potentially rank in Google and get all the results in the world. I mean, look, I've met some pretty amazing business owners who build really good websites and manage them to sort of rank well due to good content and a few other things as well. But then there were other bottlenecks like, not being able to process the leads, or potentially getting all sorts of leads coming through where they're like, well, I'm spending half the time on the phone talking to people who can never be my clients. So it's really important to understand the whole picture as opposed to sort of trying to do things more in a modular concept bit by bit and then hoping that the whole thing is going to work. But yeah, mate, absolutely. A framework would certainly help.
Yeah, definitely. The customer journey, right? Reducing friction for the entire customer journey, not just specializing in one being like, I got this working, it should work well now, without looking at the rest of the journey and being like, well, there's still a lot of friction there that your customers or leads are going to have to overcome to get on your list or to make a sale. Yeah, I really wanted to thank you for hopping on board and joining us today at Business Clicks. I wanted to just basically summarize some of the things that you said, which is really, really impressive. And I think a lot of people could take away some great information from today, which is working with businesses that have the same ideal clients as you, but you're not in direct competition with them. I think that's a great strategy that people can then implement, work with these and create these partnerships that allow you to find more clients. And then you have these multiple nodes of, client building areas that are coming from many different aspects of your business. And I think staying agile to how businesses handle processes and leads and knowing where your limitations are and being able to get either outside help or bring people on to be able to be more specialist in those areas to make sure that you haven't got those weak links that are causing, I guess, outflows or losses in your potential leads and revenue. I wanted to thank you for joining us today, Alexei. If people are interested in working with you or learning more about your Easy Web Solutions, where could they find you?
Well, Google's probably the easiest way to find us. If you look for Your Easy Web Solutions, you may find a few listings. We've got offices across Brisbane, Melbourne, and now the Gold Coast as well. So if you prefer to have a chat on the phone, give us a call at the closest location or even come in. We're pretty easygoing and, like to sort of grab a coffee and discuss a few things. And potentially, if you're interested in our seminars, just keep an eye out or join our database through the website, which is yews.com.au, short for Your Easy Web Solutions, and we'll notify you about the next upcoming event.
Brilliant. Well, that was episode 4 of Business Clicks. I'd like to thank everyone for listening, and I'll see you next time. I'm your host, Adam Barbro. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Business Clicks podcast.